Hi, I'm going to start taking apart this passenger side. So here's the tire. I took the lug nuts off. There's 5 of them. They hold the tire on. Take those off. And the tire comes off. Sometimes I put it under the car in case the car falls off the jack stand. And if it does, it falls onto that, and hopefully not on me. So this is the parts I'll be taking off. I have to take off this spring, so I have to compress it. Some special compressors. Oh, look, I found a bolt. This has to come off, and there's one behind there. It'll take off the shock. This bolt has to come out, goes underneath, and that will take off this spring perch. Now I can't take that off until I compress the spring, because if I don't, then this spring's going to want to shoot right out of there. I got to take this off. This is the brake drum. There's brakes inside here, and the whole thing spins when you're driving, and if you pull this off, the brakes are inside. So I'm going to take this off. That's the brake drum, and it covers a lot of the brake parts. But what I noticed here on this tire, right here, is some liquid has leaked. And over here on my little cart that the wheels sit on, you can see it's all wet. Brake fluid is leaked out somehow. So that's not good. But I'm taking it apart anyway. So this drum comes off to expose what's inside. So these are called the brake pads, and when you push on the brake pedal, fluid travels through this pipe to what's called the brake cylinder, and that's here, and then it pushes out. When it pushes out, these push out, and it pushes on the inside of this. Well, when you let go of the brake, the fluid travels back up, and then these springs pull everything back into place. So all that has to come off, and then the tire can just spin freely like it normally would. You put the brakes on, the whole thing stops again. I also have to take off these bolt nuts here. They hold on what are called the tie rods, and it all is what it takes to steer the car. So as I do this, I'll take it apart piece by piece and let you see. First, what I like to do is spray everything with, oh, this ball joint's been replaced. Usually there's rivets. These are riveted on usually, but since these are a nut and a bolt, that means this ball joint's been replaced. So I spray all of this stuff and let it soak. And then I'll scrub it with the wire brush. And when it's all soaked overnight, then I'll start putting a wrench on it so I can take stuff apart tomorrow. Okay, so I can take some things apart. I need a hammer and a screwdriver. Now this is actually called like the hubcap because it covers a bearing in there that is covered in grease, and you don't want it to get dirt and stuff. So you need to just get this started here. This hasn't been off in a long time. So now that it's started, I just turn this and it pops off. And that exposes underneath. There is a pin. It's right here. I can bend it with my finger or this and then turn it around and bend the other side, and that holds this castle nut in place. I can't. There we go. And flatten it out. This is really a small one. You can tell somebody worked on this. So that holds it in place. And then this, oh look at that, it's hand tight, hand tight. But really, it's so that this doesn't wobble and wiggle. Take this castle nut off. And I'm going to save everything right near here so I can put it back on, because watch what happens here. This comes off. There's a big washer right here and a bearing stuck to it. And so that will go in the hubcap. And then this whole thing comes right off. There's another bearing inside on that side. And this is called the spindle. And the bearing runs on here, and that's what makes everything spin real nice. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off that bolt right there and that bolt right there, and I'm hoping, and I got to take off this hose, the whole brake assembly is going to come off in one big piece. On the other side, I took the brakes off first and then put it back together, but I'm going to leave it together. I did redo the brakes not too long ago, so I'm going to keep all that, keep it clean, put it in a bag, save it for when I put it back together. All right, that's it for now. I'm going to try to get these loose, and you don't need to see all that. Well, I kind of made a mistake, or I jumped the gun. I got to take this steering mechanism off, tie rod end, and this castle nut, because this is called the idle arm. No, wait, what is this? This arm is attached to the back of this whole backing plate, and when it comes off, the whole thing's going to come off, and I don't want it just hanging there, so I got to take this off first. So again, it's just one of these cotter pins. You just get it bent straight. Sometimes you can tap them out with a hammer. I like to get them real flat. There we go. It's pretty flat. Let's see. Nope, that's not happening. I like to grab onto it with some wire cutters. And sometimes these things are so rusted. What you can do is cut them and pull them out this side where you've got more material. The other side, I couldn't get it out. But what I did is I cut it real close on both sides, and then I just put the socket on it, and when I turned it, it came right off. Now, I usually don't like to use a ratchet wrench on this because I want to make sure I don't break it. So I need to get my breaker bar, which is a longer, tougher wrench that doesn't have a ratchet mechanism inside, and it's just a big bar so you don't break it. So you don't break that ratchet. Now here we go. Oh, there, I see. Now I can switch over to the ratchet wrench, and you don't have to keep taking it off. Now, hopefully, I'm going to replace most of this stuff, but the deeper I get into it, I might find out that there are things here that I'm going to completely upgrade. Like these, they make all these parts. I mean, they make lots of parts for all these old cars. And once I see the condition and how much money I want to spend, I'll know. Now, this is called a pickle fork. I'm going to stick it between here, which is solid, and here, which is separate. And this is a rubber bushing, or a rubber little cover, so grease doesn't come out. And I'm going to hit this really hard with the hammer so it pops out. So I'm going to pause it. Well, I'm going to pause it so you don't have to see all that. All right, it took about a minute or two. Again, you stick this here, hit it with the hammer really hard, and then that comes down. Now you can see this is separate. And now that I have that off, I can take off these two bolts, and this whole thing will come off. You got to undo this brake line, and it'll all come off in one big piece. And if I do replace it, I didn't go through all the work. And if I don't, it's still back together and I can just pop it on. Okay, so I got this ratchet on the back. I used my breaker bar first. The ratchet's on there now because it started moving real easy. But if you notice, when I turn it, that the nut over here turns. So what you do is you stick a wrench on there, and I like to let it like get up onto something that's already there. I'm not holding it. So watch, as I turn, I keep it on, but then it comes across. This is very sturdy. So now I don't have to hold it at all, and it's not going anywhere. If you try holding it, you're just wasting your energy. So now, whoops, you gotta put it back on every once in a while. So let's see, there we go. Sometimes I just hold my hand on there, and that way it doesn't fall. So that one's almost all the way off. So I don't want to go all the way off. I'll get the other one started. Then when they're both loose, it'll just pop right off. All right, so I messed up again. I kind of forgot already from the other side, but my plan was to take off this with the two bolts that hold it in place, and then the whole thing would come off. However, what I forgot was that there is this part here that is connected. It is not coming off right now, and this is a very big bolt that goes through it and is held onto this, which is called the spindle, and all of this has to come off. All these springs, all this stuff, all of it has to come off so I can take that nut right there off. Alrighty, so we need some special tools. This pushes in on this spring because it's very hard to hold. And then this one right here has got a special hole in it, and then a special little hook on it. And what it does is it goes over the top of this, and then the hook goes on the spring, and you pop it right off. So I'll give it a shot. It takes a bit. So here we go. And I hope my arms don't get in the way, but we'll see. And I'm sitting on the floor. Sometimes you can just grab it with the pliers and pull them off. This tool is really bad. My dad's is better, but it's very hard because this isn't long enough. It doesn't get all the way on this spring. So we'll give it another shot here. Nope. Let's see if I can do it with my pliers. See, now that I got that loose, so I might have to put this back together so that it's not moving around on me. That's why I like to get everything loose before I take anything all the way off. Like this whole thing, I could get rid of all of this whole front end, and replace it. They make stuff. But if I take all this off, all of this, without loosening any of this stuff up, then I decide to use it, I'll never get these nuts and bolts loose because you'll never get any leverage with it when it's just able to move around like that. So you can see, yep. Ugh. These springs are very strong. There we go. These usually don't bend, but I just bent that one. The tool will work a lot better on the second one because, there we go. That shouldn't have bent. All right. Now we'll use the tool to get this one off. Should work. There, see that? That worked a lot easier. So now, take this off. And these springs here, I like to save everything in the position they came off and put it right back on. This just holds it to the backing plate. Whoops. And this is a self-adjusting, so I like to keep all that together. That self-adjusting stuff falls apart. Let's see. Are there any more springs? I don't think so. Just got to get it off. This is called this brake cylinder. Yeah, they came out. They're not supposed to. So that all comes out one thing. These little guys go back in. I'll leave that in for now. All that has to be checked out. That's what's leaking, I think. And the fluid leaks down the bottom. You can see some little lines here. And there's a whole bunch of gook there. Okay, now we need a hammer and a screwdriver because this has got a piece of metal folded over the top of this. We got to unfold that, put a big wrench on there, and loosen it. It's not really that strong. A piece of metal, it's flexible enough that you can bend it back, but it's to keep that in place so it doesn't work itself out. There's no way to put a lock washer on there or anything. Should get a little chisel or something. It might be a little better. I think it got my arm right in the way. Well, it works better that way anyways. This is how I get lots of scars on my hands. If you don't flatten this out, you'll never get that bolt out. All right, that side's flat. This side, we'll see. Fast forward through this or I'll cut it out. Alrighty. Alright, that's flat. Alright, so that is 15/16. It's almost an inch. Very big. Again, I'll use the breaker bar because you don't want to use the ratchet. It could break it. Now this is so deep that my socket can't go on all the way if I have it in the wrench. So I don't get enough grip. So I take this off, put it on, just stick this in a little bit, and it busts free. Again, use the breaker bar. There you go. Wasn't that bad. Like I said, the metal piece is what holds it. So now, let's see if I can do this by hand. I'll stick it on my ratchet. Sometimes you don't need that. Just need something to grab a hold of. All right, so now this, we need to save this and this. And remember, that's what all the brake springs hang on to. So I'll put that there. We bag it all up for later. Now, we take this off. This castle nut on the tie rod end. Okay, and then we take these out. I like to put everything back the way it went, the way it came off. Now, we might have to pop this free. There's usually a little gasket or something. I still had to take the brake line off. So, let's see. Alright, so that came off the back. Set that down. This whole thing's going to come off now. Of course, like I said, I didn't take this brake line off. So, but that's not under a lot of pressure. So I'm going to put this back on real quick. And I'll get the tools to break that free. Okay, so I have to take off this special line. And brake lines are very special because they cannot leak. And so you get a special wrench called the line wrench. See, it's almost full, but there's that little slot. So what you do is you slide it over the top, and then you get a lot more grip on the thing. Now this one came free really easy. Sometimes you got to use all kinds of effort to get these things off. So that comes off. And again, these lines are very special. They don't leak. If they do, then you don't have any brakes. Alright, so that's all unthreaded. Now, we got to get this off. This is just like a piece of metal that slides on there. So we can use a screwdriver to pry it off. We get a little grip. Oh, where's my hand? I'm videotaping this with one hand. Let's see. I'll edit this out. Okay, there it is. So I want to pop this out. There, it's starting to move. I turn my screwdriver a little different. See how it's coming out? Let me grab some needle nose pliers. Nope, that's not going to work. Nope. Alrighty. We'll get the screwdriver on there again. There we go. It's coming. And then that comes down at the bottom. And then this whole thing comes off. Then I'll put the brakes back on it, stick it in a bucket, store it for later. So now, if you remember, I took this off earlier. Now, I'm going to put all that back on. So, that bearing is already still in there on that back. I just slide this back on. I got my castle nut. Save that for a second. Here's my other bearing. And this washer has a little notch on it. And that goes right on the top of that, if you can see that. So I put this back on. And I'm not worried about things being clean right now because, like I said, this is just so I can put the tire back on. This all gets shoved in. Castle nut back on. I won't put the cotter pin back on because there's no need to. Not driving this thing. The cotter pin basically it just goes through that little hole and through one of the little notches in the crown of the castle and holds it in place. So that's good enough. It's not wiggling. I can put my tire back on, set this down so that I can really pull on some of these other nuts and bolts and this spring too. When I compress this spring, I want everything to be safe, and I can usually work around because the tire only comes out about that high. Alright, so what did we do here? We took the tire off, took off the hub, took off the backing plate, took off the brakes, and put the hub back on, and I think that's it for now.